Comair in the middle of a storm over technical problems that's left many passengers concerned about their safety. They're well documented. Questions have been turned to why the Civil Aviation Authority has lifted the company's air operator certificates. In the latest incident, a British Airways flight only landed in its second attempt after it had technical difficulties with its landing gear in Cape Town. We're told that the same aircraft experienced landing gear difficulties last month. Comair operators BA and Kulula flights. Let's get more answers from the Civil Aviation Authority spokesperson, Phindiwe Gwebu. Thank you so much for your time, Phindi. We do appreciate it. Let's start off with what actually happened. Could you tell us what happened with this British Airways flight from Gqeberha to Cape Town yesterday?
Based on the report that they sent us, Heidi, they indicated that the lights in the cockpit, that basically serves as an indicator to them whether the landing gears have retracted or not, did not come on. So for them to get assurance of this, they did a fly past to the ATC so that ATC could confirm whether the wheels were off indeed, and that they had actually deposed, and they confirmed, and that's when they undertook then the proper landing.
So from your understanding and from your information that you've received as a Civil Aviation Authority, did they land on the second attempt? Because passengers have tweeted me, have messaged me to tell me that the plane had been trying to attempt 4 times before it could eventually land. But from the Civil Aviation Authority, do you understand it to be the plane landing only on its second attempt?
We did not define it in terms of attempts, Heidi, and I did read also those notices that were saying they landed on the 4th attempt. But what I can say is that from our side, what is really of importance is that the operator reported this incident to us, and they also confirmed that they decided to ground the aircraft until such time that they have resolved this issue sufficiently, and that normally would include them inviting CAA to come and verify whether the maintenance was done according to plan. Secondly, they also reported the incident to the Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigation Unit for purposes of investigation. So my understanding is that that unit is busy with their part of the investigation. But I also need to mention this because this seems to be alarming to the public, in the sense that the CAA has just recently uplifted the suspension of Comair. So there's 2 things here. One of them is that we appreciate the fact that after the process that we have taken the airline through in terms of making sure that they are able to manage or implement their safety management system properly, they took the right steps this time around. And secondly, we need to point out that, remember, when we announced the suspension of Comair's air operator certificate, it was based on the level 1 findings. There were other findings that we raised that were of a lesser serious nature than the level 1 findings. So basically, we are not done with Comair as yet. The audit is actually still continuing. In fact, the teams have met today as well to look at the evidence that Comair submitted in terms of level 2 findings. But I must also stress this idea. Incidents do happen in our industry. And I want to believe not just the aviation industry, they happen everywhere else. But the good thing with our industry is that when an incident happens, it is by law required that the operators must report this to the CAA. And if it's of a serious nature, they must report it to the Accident and Incident Investigation, because the purpose of the Accident and Incident Investigation process is to make sure that we learn lessons and that similar incidents don't recur. And from our point of view, it is for us to ascertain whether the operator took the right steps in closing that. And this is what led to us suspending their license from the very first go in the past week. So from that point of view, the system itself has got its own checks and balances to make sure that we do not pose a risk in terms of the life of the people that are using civil aviation services. But also, we also started, as a result of the series of incidents that affected Comair aircraft, we also started an inspection with the aircraft maintenance organizations that are maintaining the fleet of Comair. And that investigation is nearing its end now. We should be finished in the next couple of days with that, and we'll see what the outcome is, because based on the suspension from last week, we were basing it on the basis of how the operations are being run. Now we're looking at how the aircraft are being maintained, and this should reveal a lot that we wanted to know as the CAA.
Certainly, I was going to eventually get to that, and I will still ask you. And I know that the Civil Aviation Authority might not be the right person to answer this, but we have asked for Comair to come on the show this evening, and we were told that no interviews will be happening at this stage. You mentioned that Comair decided to ground the aircraft. Are you aware of how many aircraft have been grounded because of the incident of yesterday?
It's just because of yesterday's incident, it's the only one. But I must stress that when we were doing the operation side of the inspection from a CAA perspective, we also grounded 2 of the aircraft. And that was because they didn't follow civil aviation regulations requirements, in the sense that civil aviation regulations requirements say that if your aircraft suffered damages to a class 1 component. A class 1 component are those components that are major in terms of the performance of the aircraft, and an engine is one of those. A landing gear is one of those. Then they are supposed to actually fix that part, call the CAA to come and verify whether the part has been resolved properly, and then CAA then would, in fact, the director would be able to reinstate their certificate of airworthiness. But also, there's a principle that was introduced years ago in aviation of voluntary compliance. Voluntary compliance, simply put, is what Comair did yesterday. They grounded the aircraft themselves without waiting for CAA to come and say, no, you cannot fly this aircraft. So that is part of the lessons that we are hoping that are being instilled also from the point of view of this operator.
Sure, I would hope so, Phindi, because you have people that are really worried. I mean, when you have an engine failure twice and you also have landing gear that's not coming out when it should, many are asking the question about the role of the Civil Aviation Authority, and this leads to my next question. Considering what happened yesterday, this is the 4th incident that Comair has experienced since February. Is this going to warrant another suspension of their operations?
The only time that, remember, we did the operation side of the business, how they basically manage the operations on a day-to-day basis. And now we're looking at the aircraft maintenance of the fleet. Now, you would agree with me, the nature of the incidences that took place from February up until now are incidences that impact the aircraft itself. And from that point of view, we were really just closing the loop in terms of making sure that we look at all of the aspects of the business and not just look at one and ignore the other. So we are just asking for the public to be patient with us whilst we finalize this process. Because, Heidi, one of the things I want to also point out is that incidents do happen. They do happen. And what matters to us as the CAA is whether the operators take the right steps in closing those incidents. And this is the reason why we suspended their air operator certificate in the past week. But now we're looking now at another aspect of the business, which involves the people that are handling their maintenance. Are they properly qualified? Do they actually follow their own safety management system principles as well as their quality management system principles? Those are the things that we look at now from that point of view, because this is like an ecosystem, and these people have to work together hand in glove to make sure that they ultimately we ensure safety for the public. Okay,
Phindiwe, I'm running out of time, but I just have one more question that can be combined into 2. You mentioned that there's an investigation and an audit being done in the companies that actually maintain and service Comair aircraft. Could you tell us who those companies are and whether or not they should be questioned or action taken against them? Because at the end of the day, if they are servicing and maintaining the aircraft and you've had these malfunctions and technical issues, while you are saying that it's very normal for this to happen in the industry, as a passenger, I can tell you that people don't want to have these technical issues while you are in the skies, because where do you go? It's not like you can try and get out of a moving vehicle. You're in an aeroplane. So speak to us about the companies that actually service the aircraft and what action, possible action, could be taken against them, because clearly there's an issue here.
The 2 companies that are maintaining the fleet of Comair is Lufthansa Technik as well as CAA Technical. And I can confirm that both of them are currently under inspection. We're almost done with Lufthansa, and we're probably going to finish SAAT, in the next few days as well. So that process, as soon as it is concluded, we will be able to tell the public what the outcome of that process is. Heidi, the reason why I'm stressing the issue about the incidents happening is not really to scare people, but it's basically to raise the point that we have a system that the public can trust, that is able to hold our license holders accountable in terms of what steps do they take when they have those incidents. And I think aviation, from that point of view, is actually having a very watertight process, in the sense that in our case, if our inspectors visit your operations and they discover you had an incident that you didn't report, already that is a red flag for us, because it means that you then are not taking the necessary care. The reason why they have to report this to us is so that we can then also make sure that we close that loop and make sure when we visit them, they have actually done the right steps. And if they don't, and we see a situation, a trend like we've seen with Comair flights from February, then that is the time then it raises a red flag for the regulator and say that let's go and check what's happening. And then we pay attention just to you and make sure that the systems are actually working.
Okay, great. We thank you for your time and just reassuring South Africans that you are managing the situation, because it is quite worrying. That was South Africa's Civil Aviation Authority spokesperson, Phindiwe Gwebu, just speaking about the latest issues with Comair operations.